Patnaiks are joined, then we can start even the program also, because uh, generally people they may join after 5 minutes, because 5-10 minutes only. This is our Indian tradition, so we can follow the same thing.
Yes, sir. We can wait for Patnaik, sir. Are all the four participants of the session present? If you are present, kindly raise your hand as we will make you co-host for the session. People who are going to speak in this session. There's an option to raise your hands on your screen somewhere. Please raise your hands if you are a speaker for this session. Okay, sir, Intaj Ali is there. You can
Yeah,
make him go.
Hello, I'm also here.
Yeah, Rosie, you are already a co-host. No
Thank
worries.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
second speaker is Dr. Rubhani. Whether speaker is here or not.
I don't think so.
We have two speakers at present. Dr. Sweta Anthony. No, the two speakers are only available.
I think they may join in sometimes.
Just only two. No?
Can we begin, sir?
Start.
We can start?
We can start. Yeah, I think already 2, 3 sir may join. So we have already two speakers, so you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all faculty members, all researchers, and various participants who are here to attend our seminar on multidisciplinary approaches to folk life, challenges, and perspectives. This is the second session of the day. Before we begin the session, I would like to say that I request all of you to keep your mics on mute at all times. other than the speakers. We will unmute the speakers. I also request uh, people to not speak any questions during the session. Whatever questions you have regarding any presentation, you can put them in the chat box, and at the end of each session we will have the question answer session, where I will be putting across the questions from the chat box. There will be no interaction between the participants and the speakers directly. You can put all the questions in the chat box and I will put them across to the speaker. Few things that we need to keep in mind is that there is a time limit for each speaker. So every speaker will be given 20 minutes for their presentation and an additional 10 minutes for the question answer discussions. Each speaker is requested to give a brief introduction of themselves before beginning their papers, and the time of the introduction will also be included within the 20 minutes of the total presentation. Kindly try to abide by the time limit so that all speakers get equal time to participate. Um, in case any of the speaker is crossing the time limit, I will interrupt and say that there are 5 minutes left so that you have an idea how to sum up your presentation. So without further ado, I would like to begin the session. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Ankita Gupta. I am a PhD research scholar at the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, Delhi University, and I am researching on taboos associated with menstruation and the politics of language. And without delaying this any further, I will now begin with our first speaker, Dr. Rosie Yumnam. They will be speaking on the topic using folk narratives for language teaching. I now pass over to Dr. Rosie. You may please begin your presentation.
Ita. Hello, everyone. Give me a few seconds so that I can share my screen. Is my screen visible, Ankita?
Visible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Rosie Yumnam from the English and Foreign Languages University, Shillong campus. It's indeed a pleasure to be presenting my paper here in this webinar. Thank you, respected moderator, and also the esteemed organizers for giving me this opportunity. Well, the title of my paper is Using Folk Narratives for Language Teaching. I'll be going into the English language teaching perspective. So I'll start my presentation. Well, I've structured my presentation in the following points. First, I'll define what is a folktale. Second, why folktales in ELT, that is English language teaching. Then a brief methodology. Then in findings and discussions, I'll be bringing in how do we bring in folktales in the classroom. And then conclusion. So let me start with folktales. Yes, I'm going to discuss on something which we all have grown up listening to, that is the folktales. And we all know that folktales are stories passed down through generations, mainly orally. According to Abrams, a folktale is defined as a short narrative in prose, anonymously written, that has been transmitted orally. Folktales are characterized by fictitious events and characters, and a certain extent of suspension of disbelief is required by the audience to conceive it. They are also rich in various features of literary creativity. Folktales are also an important source of passing on traditions, culture, and values across generations. Popular examples of folk tales are fairy tales, fables, myths, legends, and so on and so forth. And so where do we find these folk tales? We find it within our community, from the net, then print sources, then like magazines or periodicals for children, and also from traveling. Well, my study seeks to explore the various features of folk narratives and contends that there are certain pedagogical aspects in using folk tales in English as a second language classrooms. So my next point is why folk tales in ELT? So for this, I have got these 5 points put up there in the slide. The first one is use of language forms. Second, culture, very important. Next, enhances imagination and creativity. Then comes vocabulary, and then the language skills. Literature-based language teaching has been considered a common approach to enhance language learning process. Different forms of literature with a variety of literary creativity have been used in language teaching. As observed by Mewin and Pearce, literary creativity, defined at the level of language, involves manipulation and use of the various linguistic form of the text. In general, folk tales include distinguishing structural and linguistic features like onomatopic sounds, novel words, and repeated grammatical patterns with interesting rhythms. According to McKay, one of the most significant contributions of using literature for the purpose of language teaching is that literature contains language manifested in discourse which describes the specific use of language forms. So this will be beneficial for developing the language awareness of the students. Relatedly, she observes other advantages like the promotion of cultural tolerance, enhancement of reading proficiency, and also improving creativity for the students in the language classroom. Going further, according to Bean, the distinctive universality of the basic structure in folk tales from various cultures makes these tales a very important source for language learning. The English language classes can employ tales from any culture in its English translations. This can be used for beginners to learn grammatical components like simple present and past tenses, parts of speech, and vocabulary. The language used in folk tales, being related to the oral traditions, is believed to be less complex than the language used in academic writing. So the simple languages used in folk tales make it easier for the learners to cognitively comprehend and relate it to their daily lives. Relatedly, Taylor asserts that the universal themes of kindness, honesty, jealousy, greed, and narrative structures with a storyline of reward or punishment in the folk tales, and they can encourage the learners to listen or read with confidence. So the underlying messages in the narratives of a folktale can give the learners more cognitive space to learn a language. This enables the learner to understand the specific use of grammatical patterns and vocabulary used in the folktales and how they can relate to them. So in view of these observations, it can be argued that the folktales, which form a vital part of folk literature, can be employed in ELT classrooms to teach English language as well as to understand culture and values. Next, methodology. Well, the objective of the study is constructed to examine how the folktales, which are either verbal or written, can be employed in ESL classrooms to teach grammar and vocabulary in context, to incorporate language, culture, and content, and also to enhance communicative skills. So for this, the folk narratives of Nagaland, Manipur, and Meghalaya are explored to teach English language. And the target level of learners is the young learners in the age group of 7 to 14 years in the primary and upper primary schools. This age group is the most crucial period in the process of language, culture, and value education. This is the conceptualization stage where the learner starts opening their creative and critical mental faculties, which, if monitored and utilized properly, can highly enhance their language learning process. So, my paper further deliberates on the various classroom practices where folktales are used to teach language, culture, and values in an appealing way. So I've taken this following points to discuss the classroom practices. The 4 points are: folktales make learning fun. Second, It provides rich vocabulary. They are a good source of cultural information. Folktales provide moral or life lesson. Folktales to teach various forms of discourse. Folktales to develop the use of figurative language. Now let me come to the first point. Folktales make learning fun. Stories and folktales bring a world full of wonder and magic, which can make in teaching and learning more enjoyable and fun. For this, I have used a folk song of Manipur, Hisan Hirao. Hisan Hirao is a narrative poem sung on the concluding day of the Lai Harawa festival of Manipur. It narrates the touching story of the mourning of a tree parent for their treasured son. After discussing the poem in the class, various tasks can be assigned to teach communicative skills and language skills. So I have as example, I've just given task 1 and task 2. So the task 1, performance in the classroom. So for this, divide the class into 2 groups. Ask one group to find out one of the songs which is sung on Lai Harawa festival and perform in the class. For the other group, ask them to find out one form of dance of the Lai Harawa festival, and then the same should be asked to perform in the class. They can be further asked to comment on their performances. So this task is aimed to teach communicative skills, listening and speaking skills. Then further insights can be provided into the Lai Harawa song and dance being performed in the class by explaining their cultural significance in the present day society. Now coming to the second task, finding information. The students are divided into groups of 3. Each group is provided with objects or pictures like shawls, figurines, jewelries, artifacts, handicrafts, paintings, and so on and so forth, pertaining to the culture and mythologies of in here Manipur or different states for that matter. Ask the students to find information about the objects or pictures provided to them by a form of research or investigation. They can be asked to discuss about their research in the class, which will enhance their speaking and listening skills. Based on their listening ability, the students are asked to write a short summary on each of the objects and present in the class. So this task is aimed to teach communicative skills, listening, speaking, and writing skills. So in this way, the learners enjoy the various tasks and activities as they learn communicative skills and language skills. Now coming to the second point. Yes, folktales provide rich vocabulary. Folktales consist of stories which have a wide variety of authentic vocabulary. Through the narrations of the folktales, the learners have a chance to listen to meaningful insights of the stories and not just listening to single words. So they can guess the meaning of the word from the context, which gives them a platform to learn vocabulary incidentally. This will enhance their cognitive and creative faculties, thereby enhancing their learning skills. So for this, I have used 2 folktales, one from Meghalaya, that is What Makes the Eclipse, and the other one is a folktale of Nagaland, Why the Sun Rises to the Call of the Rooster. So the first one, let me come to the first one. What Makes the Eclipse, which is a folktale of Meghalaya. This folktale describes the fight between the sun goddess called Ka Sningi and the giant toad U Hinro, and how their fight causes the eclipse. So after the folktale is read in the class, vocabularies like seclusion, terrified, distress, enchantment, etc. can be taken up from the story. These words can be written on pieces of card. Tell a student to come up and pick a card and describe what it means to the rest of the class. This exercise can be repeated. With the vocabulary they have learned, they can be asked to use in their own sentences. Now, for the second folktale from Nagaland, why the sun rises to the call of the rooster. This folktale describes how a man killed the wife of the sun with a catapult. The sun was extremely saddened and was not ready to rise until the intervention of the rooster, who happens to be his good friend. So after the folktale is read in the class, the students can be familiarized with words like catapult, underneath, grieving, redress, etc. These words can be written on the board and ask the students to read the word and think of words that come to their mind. Many words related to the words written on the board can be exchanged amongst the students in the class. Now coming to the third point, folktales are a good source of cultural information. In Hall's observation, the understanding of culture is achievable by comprehending people's interaction, particularly their use of language. Learning a language takes place in a cultural environment, so a learner's cultural competence is conducive for effective language learning. Therefore, the teaching of culture is crucial in a second English or foreign language learning, and the lively and awe-inspiring content of the folk tales is a good source of cultural knowledge. So for this, I have used the same folk song which I have used earlier, Hisan Hirau. As Hisan Hirau is a folk song sung on the concluding day of the Lai Harawa festival. In this, it has got lots of cultural elements embedded in this folk song. In this folk song, the cultural traditions are reflected in its myth narrations, where the birth of the king called Hyang Hiren is described. The myth surrounding the Sangai. Sangai is a brow-antlered deer, which is found only in the Kaibul Lamjau National Park of Manipur. And the human head, which adorns the head and tail of the king's boat Hyang Hiren, is a source of the Meitei history, literature, and culture. The Meitei is an indigenous ethnic group of Manipur. So till the present day, the Meitei boat racing tradition called Hyang Tanaba is celebrated every year. So these cultural traditions can be highlighted and discussed in the class. At the same time, language skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing can be taught in the class. For this, we can assign some tasks and activities like group discussion based on the topic, folk tales of the different tribes of Manipur, or folk tales of the different tribes of the Northeast India can be assigned to the students. Writing and narrating a story based on the poem Hisan Hirau to incorporate the cultural elements which can be drawn from the folk song. Now coming to the fourth point, folk tales provide moral or life lesson. Most of the folk tales are rich in values which teach us moral or life lesson. By using folk tales, young learners may understand these pertinent values and lessons of life in a fun and lively way. So for this, I have used a folktale of Manipur, China Roll. China Roll is a folktale of Manipur, rich in values reminiscent throughout its narrations. In the folktale, a combat takes place to settle a conflict. The real winner of the combat is Moiremba, but Athoba cheated and won the combat. Moiremba and Athoba are two characters in the folktale. As Athoba had won the combat by dishonest means, his inner mental conflict consumed him to death. So this narrative brings out the trails of the victory of the righteousness and the downfall of the evil. This universal moral theory can be used to teach moral or life lessons. Using this folk narrative, language skills can also be taught. So some activities like writing and enacting a one-act play based on the story, incorporating values drawn from the extract. Group activity to find out and write on the various forms of thangta. Thangta is a form of martial art of Manipur, which has its origin in China Roll. Now, coming to the fifth point, folk tales to teach various forms of discourse. The use of folk tales can bring forth both types of narrative and dialogue discourse, and also the use of direct and indirect speech. The teacher, with a slight touch of creativity, and can also modify the original story by turning some parts of the dialogue into narrative and vice versa. So for this, I have used a folktale of Meghalaya, U Manik Raitong. The folktale U Manik Raitong describes the legend of U Manik Raitong, the classic lover and the dispenser of the tradition of love and music in Khasi society. The Khasi people are an indigenous ethnic group of Meghalaya. So from this folktale, this is a conversation here in this slide, the first one. This is a conversation between the lovers, U Manik Raitong and Kaling Macau, when they first met and fell in love. So Manik shouted after her, "Will I see you again? If you want to see me, come to my house tomorrow." The girl shouted back, "Ask for the house of the Linskor." So from this dialogue, direct and indirect speech can be taught in the class. The students can be further asked to write their own dialogues on any topic of their choice and present in the class. So, and then coming to the next folktale, it's a folktale of Nagaland. Life in the Kaiki. Kaiki is a dormitory, details a customary oral interaction when boys visit girls at their Kaiki. This folktale is an oral folk narrative of the Chakesang Nagas. So the following is this is a conversation from the folktale. So between the boys and the girls there. The boys, dear ladies, what have you taken for meal and come to fellowship with unworthy men like us? Girls, a good meal of meat, and come to fellowship with you, good men. The boys, did you really have a good meat of meal? Girls, yes, we really had. So, from this dialogue, direct and indirect speech can also be taught in the class. The students can be asked to convert a dialogue form into a story, adopting a narrative discourse. So the story can be then asked to discuss in the class. Then, in the same point, I have the narrative discourse. As the His and Hero, which I have discussed earlier, is a narrative form. So I can use this extract given here. Given here. So after the narrative techniques have been discussed in the class, the students can be asked to convert this extract, this narrative extract, into the dialogue discourse and discuss in the class. So in this way, the students will learn the various forms of discourses as well as enhance their communicative and language skills. So my last point is folk tales to develop the use of figurative language. So for this, I have used again the same folk tale of Meghalaya, What Makes the Eclipse. So in this folktale, the young girl Kanam, a young girl named Kanam, rescued by the mouse, climbed into the magic tree and spoke the magic words taught to her by the mouse. So she says, here she says, grow tall, dear tree, the sky is near and expand and grow. Upon which the tree began to grow. The use of personification in these lines can be highlighted and discussed in the class. Now, again, the same folk song, His and Hero from Manipur. The tree parents' last encounter with their loving tree son at dawn is heartbreaking. The lines given here can be read from the poem to show the use of personification. Filled with benevolence for the dearest son, the grieving tree parents having their last look at him and return back as the sun dawns upon earth. So these lines can be used to teach English language. Based on the understanding of this analysis, the students can be guided to create their own sentences using personification. These sentences can be then asked to share in the class. This activity can enhance the listening, speaking, writing skills of the students, and also the use of figurative language can be encouraged. In another activity, the students can be asked to write a short story based on the poem. The short story can be asked to read, discuss, and critically analyze in the class. Again, in another activity, the students can be asked to write a play based on the folktale, What Makes the Eclipse. The play can be asked to perform in the class. In this way, the students, language skills can be enhanced, and also the use of figurative language can be introduced. So now to conclude, folktales are thus a valuable source of teaching English as a second language. They provide authentic, meaningful, and rich content which assist in enhancing language learning as well as to understand culture, values, and the ways of life. Then in the classroom practices which I have deliberated, it can be said that the folk tales of Nagaland, Manipur, and Meghalaya used in the study with its pedagogical implications can be effectively used in language classrooms. In the process, learners can also develop cultural awareness and values reminiscent throughout the folk tales. Folk tales give the flexibility of creating a variety of engaging activities to cater to different learning styles. Folk tales also foster learners' imagination, creativity, which greatly enhances the process of learning English as a second language. However, there is one problem. Teaching of English as a second language has its own objective. Folktales often require certain modifications to use in a language classroom so that they can suit the objective of the specific lessons to augment the emotional, cognitive, and language growth of the learners. So that's all. Thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie. It was a very enlightening and a very knowledgeable presentation. Thank you so much for telling us about the various techniques that language teaching can use folk narratives in. Now we can, and also thank you so much for keeping up with the time limit. I would like to welcome the questions. in the chat box. Kindly you can ask your questions in the chat box. Okay, so the first question we have from Mandvi, Dr. Rosie. The first
Yes.
question is, there are certain words or concepts that cannot be translated or contextualized in another language, for they're a part of folk vocabulary. How can these be included in ELT?
Uh, yes, Mandavi, thank you for your very interesting question. Yes, there are, and the folk tales. To answer your question first, let me tell you, the folk tales which I have used in my work, they are all translated ones. They were all in Manipuri or Naga languages or the Khasi languages. So it has all been translated once. So what is important here is I'm concerning with the communicative part, the language skills in the communicative part. And of course, if we cannot translate some words, suppose we have a word called, what do you call, like I have used Hyang Tanaba in my presentation, Hyang Tanaba. So that Tanaba, there is no word, there is no exact word in English. So I have used that Hyang Tanaba. Okay, so I have used this word, the Manipuri word Hyang Tanaba in my in the folk tales when I narrated to the students. So my point is, we can use the the words in the indigenous, actually the mother tongue of our mother tongue. If there is no translation as available, we don't have to translate word by word. Folk tales, it is not possible again. All right, the folk narratives, it's not possible to translate word by word again. So my point is, we can use the language, the words which we cannot translate. We can use those words, and then and then see how you can bring in, how you can make it, how you can how you can make an effective material for your classroom. Does that
Thank you.
answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie.
Thank you.
The next question is from Professor Patnaik. He asks, how do you select text which is translation of Tibeto-Burman language in English for the use in teaching English language?
Yes, yes, sir. Manipuri is a Tibeto-Burman language, right, sir? So yes, I have used the English translation. The text which I have used, China Roll is is available. The English translation is available, and even Hizen Hirao is. I'm working on Hizen Hirao, which is a translated work. So yes, of course, there is no word to word. We cannot have a word by word translation as such, but we try to make the narrations, the narrative part, and then yes, the translations, China Roll and Hizen Hirao, they are, you can say, they are near to authentic. This is what I have observed in the research, where I have taken. I have observed that these are, coming to near, what do you call, perfection. So I've used this, and yes, of course it's very difficult when, as there is no word-to-word translations, but folk tales as folklores, we can always go about narrating stories, and the storytelling element in the classroom, and the children love it, the students love it. This is from my experiences. Actually I have implemented this classroom practices which I have mentioned in the actual classrooms, and I have found that the motivation level, the creativity level have increased to a great level, and they were inquisitive. They were inquisitive, and they were happy to know the various folk tales of the different tribes. I'm talking about the Northeast India. I'm working on Northeast India, the folk tales of Northeast India. So in a way, I feel, using folk tales of the different tribes of not only Northeast India, of the different parts of the country, can further lead to can create a platform of understanding, others' culture, and further leading to a peaceful coexistence amongst various communities. This is what I feel, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie. I hope that is a satisfactory answer to Professor Patnaik. I would just like to see if there are any more questions. If any of you have any more questions, we have 5 minutes. And if there are no more questions, we can move to the next speaker. We will just wait for 1 minute in case somebody is typing. Otherwise, we will move ahead. Sure, sir. Please ask another question. Okay, Professor Patnaik has asked a follow-up question. He says, my point was how to manage when you are taking a translated text from a tonal language.
Okay. Okay, sir. Actually, sir, I'm looking at the the cultural element and the communication skills part, sir. I'm looking at the cultural and the value perspective and the teaching of language skills, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rosie.
Yes.
I think we don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Okay, we have one more question. We have some time. This question is from Ruchi. Are there other social impact of such classroom practice apart from triggering social solidarity among communities?
Yeah. Hello?
Hello, could you hear my question?
Yeah, no, but I can see it from the chat box. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's fine. Well, the point is the social impact, yes, the social solidarity is there. And then, when I actually implemented this in the classroom, some of the students didn't even know about the folktales which was discussed. Like this is from the folktales which I have used is from their own community, was from their own community, but still some of them didn't even know, they were not aware of it. So it's a kind of, it triggered them to think, yes, it's the cultural element, the value element, that we need to look into it, and they were interested. And this the use of these folk tales, folk narratives, and it helped them to use this English language in this real time, real life situations. And so if these are, if we let them use in real life situations, it's a very important element in effective language learning. So I feel this helped them to effectively to augment their learning skills, language learning abilities.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie. Now we can move to the second speaker. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosie, and thank you all the participants for your wonderful questions.
Thank you,
Mm,
Ankita.
okay. Dr. Rubani, if you are present, kindly raise your hand in the Zoom so that we can make you a co-host. Okay, I think Dr. Rubani has not joined us yet. So we can move to the next speaker, Muhammad Intaj Ali. Um, Intaj Ali is talking about, their paper talks about digital folkloristics and the idea of interdisciplinarity in folklore studies. So I hand over the presentation to Muhammad Intaj Ali. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, organizer, especially Patnaik sir and all that his team member for making this wonderful seminar. Myself, as I said in the beginning, that in the beginning of the conference that we need to introduce ourselves. So myself, as I said, like my name is Muhammad Intaj Ali. I'm currently working as an assistant professor of English at Netaji Subhas Open University, Kolkata. So before joining here, I have done my postdoctoral degree at Jadavpur University for a shorter period of time, and then before that, I have done my doctoral research at the Center for Comparative Literature, University of Hyderabad. My thesis titled on tradition of storytelling in West Bengal, a comparative study of oral and visual art forms. That covered the mediums of photography, visual anthropology, ethnomusicology, documentary making, and digital humanities and folk archiving. Why I'm saying this, because in my PhD thesis also, I looked at how multidisciplinary approach can be made when somebody is doing a research. So I'm very thankful for the department, like especially Center for Comparative Literature, who are very keen and interested in doing things across borders and across languages and also across different discipline. And before that also, in my MPhil level, I have worked on Baul music and philosophy of Bengal, where I have made a documentary, which is also the part of my dissertation. Since then, I've involved with digital music archiving. So the introduction in the abstract that I have already written, that the subject called folklore gradually becomes interdisciplinary, and earlier the subjects like anthropology, ethnography, and cultural studies are engaged with it. But recently we see that digital humanities can also become part of these folklore studies. Not only that, even linguistics in other in relation to the folklore studies we could see. So folkloristics is the most emphatically a discipline in which, to a large extent, progress, we could see trends within neighboring discipline came into the part of it. But there is a crisis of doing all this as a discipline. That maybe I'll talk about little bit at the end of my presentation when I conclude my session. So folklore elements play an important contribution in shaping the cultural identity, the history, and the people and their way of living. Not only that, it has also helped to grow our literature as an oral tradition, because we see that some of the time, like our oral literature, like our literature that is written, that also a source for inspiration for the like written literature are taking inspiration from oral literature. So folklore studies should look at a new ways of defining folk and lore in the 21st century by dealing with the paradigm shift in the approach as well as the theoretical point of view. A folklore study is not merely a collecting materials and documenting them, but it's more than that, by applying interdisciplinary tools and theoretical models for better framework so that it explicates new areas of knowledge. For example, when I'm doing my PhD thesis, I have designed a website of music archiving, and how this website can also be useful for the future researcher to generate knowledge, because whatever fieldwork has been done. We are putting into a website, and that can be useful for the other future researcher as a resource for the knowledge. And this is actually the paper has been written in a very short span of time, maybe within 2 3 days, because I have not get it so much time. And there is also a process of approval from our university and the selection process, so it took a longer time for this. And I tried to justify it within a very limited resources of paper, and let's see how it could make fruitful to all of you. And maybe I'll take suggestion from all of you, and then I'll incorporate in this paper when I'll write the full paper of this. So the basic premise of this current paper includes interdisciplinary nature of folklore studies and its correlation with the other discipline. And furthermore, this paper also argues how digital aspects of the folklore studies can be a fruitful medium of studies. So the present topic of my discussion also analyzes the long process of these digital technologies and how this social media can be a equal part of phenomena, and also as a method of archiving this for future studies. So in the introduction, I said like folklore is a fundamental component to distinguish any country, because every country has its own culture, own heritage, and how this heritage is distinguished actually. So this is actually make you make you distinguish with the other countries as well. So everywhere throughout the world, folklore is perceived as a precious resources of our own culture and heritage. So this section actually begins with the concept of folklore in the perspective of its nature and scope. So it also argues how folklore is changing due to the effect of digital revolution and emergence of internet culture. So there is a rapid change of folklore studies in the 21st century by making it in the mold of digital folkloristics. So here I mean digital folkloristic in the sense of how technology, how the media can be also uh, the result of production of folklore studies, not only the result of production but also the transmission of folk life and folk cultural aspect of our heritage, transmission as well as the reception. So there is a long debate on the subject of folklore studies from the initial days because of its interdisciplinary nature. Tolkien in the year 1996 argues that anybody investigating the subject of folklore out of the blue sink may be amazed to find that the insightful exchange of the subject has been occurring for more than 200 years, for the most part among individuals who have removed toward it from the vantage direct related towards different disciplines, different aspects of discipline, whether it's language, religion, literature, human science, history, even sometimes close to the ancestor worship. So the field of folklore, as probably know it uh, today, has been shaped and characterized by by the variety of methodologies, energy, and also open deliberation uh, achieved by inescapable conflict between opposed truths of deliberate discussion. So through this quotation of Tolkien, we try to understand that folklore is a discipline that may be incorporated different discipline, whether it's language, religion, or any part of the discipline they are trying to incorporate in that ways. So today we should look at folklore as something relic of the past. Rather, it's extremely the part of the modern technological world, as people term it as digital folkloristic. For example, even in COVID-19 situation, you may be aware of that everything has stopped in COVID-19 situation. But do you think that the performance has stopped during this COVID-19 situation? I don't think so. This performance has stopped because we have so many medium of studies, whether it's YouTube culture or whether it's Twitter or Facebook. So in all this social media, we have been seeing that people are especially artists from different regions, are coming into live, and they're presenting their performance. So this is not a restricted moment, that this folklore aspect is only belonging to a region of the remote areas, but these geographical boundaries also, changing its scenario and expanding its horizon. So folklore is also a self-conscious discipline, and speculation on the future of folkloristic. The academy study of the folklore has been pessimistic at best. In a similar vein, Richard Bowman and Charles Biggers note that tradition, I quote, has been reportedly on the verge of dying more than 3 centuries. It continues to provide useful means of producing and legitimizing new modernist projects, sets schemes of social inequality. uh, I just ending my quote. Despite all this doom and gloom, folklore, I quote again from Dundes, where he's saying that continues to be alive. That folklore is not, you know, it's kind of. I'm just trying to interpret it in my own words. That folklore is continues to be alive. It never ending actually in the modern world, and it transmission and the transmission of the folklore also changing through time to time. Now we have a transmission of knowledge through YouTube, transmission of knowledge through email and Facebook Live. So this transmission and reception and circulation of knowledge is changing due to the effect of technology. So it is that time of the folkloristic look at the internet, not only to expand our scholastic horizons, but also to carry our discipline into the digital age. So this is the quotation from Blank. So what we understand by the effect of internet technology. So the internet and the wide web expanded the limits of folklore studies as a discipline and a method of studies. According to uh, Barmejo, the emergence of internet and world wide web, that is WWW, has changed its ways of communication. Because if you're looking at the telephonic communication, that means our oral communication also changing by the effect of time. He argues that towards the start of the 90s, there occurred a major changes of the internet as the web turned into the focal point of the internet, and internet browser turned into the most widely recognized method of getting to it. Changes in the correspondence forms built up finish. The internet likewise occurred because of the particular normal for the web and its programs. So the web presented better approaches for conveying over the internet, encouraged the utilization of the net, promoting the advancement as it were. Likewise, engage and advance its commercialization. So whatever may be the commercialization, even you could see that there is a commercialization in our industry, and even a normal folk song become global with the effect of uh, this YouTube culture and Facebook culture. And there are so many example of this, that a song become there is a one example of all this, maybe all of aware of that, that is বড় লোকের বিটিলো লম্বা লম্বা চুল, right? So these song are composed by a person from Bengal, particularly Birbhum, and it becomes so much globally rich that it got fame with a click way, and even the Bollywood industry also shocked with this. So anyway, this so due to the effect of the internet and social media, communication approach to folklore studies have changed a lot. Today we can communicate with the interviewers so easily, and pre-field work is done by doing survey in the internet before going to the field. So this method has been studied and also analyzed so easily that even I applied for this, because why should I know before you can do your field work, you can communicate with the artist from at your home, and you can do an interview even from your place also. Even modern folklore has an impact for modernization and urbanization. So in this context, Leah Bhartinen comments, I quote, modern folklore refers to a process that has been in progress in different parts of the world for more than 100 years and that have given various names such as modernization, urbanization, full stop. Modernization means the movement of population into the urban center, while the urbanization refers to the spreading of an urban way of life among the rural population. Communities that have already become urbanized affect those that do not yet possess urban settlement, so that they become culturally heterogeneous and secularized. So this process reflected as a dramatic changes both in the system of values, in the nature of human relations, and it is clear that the consequences of modernization also extend to folklore tied to face contacts, and not only to the face-to-face contact with we have even this process of uh, urbanization also have this interaction between different artists. So what we notice is that through this discussion all through from the beginning, that these folklore studies not only talking about the old relics of the past, but it also give uh, error link feeling unhappy. Sorry, somebody has commented. Anyway, so this folklore studies also give a interest, more interest in communication technologies that are in constant state of metamorphosis. So this internet and different social media services uh, and allow us to take a place all more easily to to transmit our oral culture. So this is the age where everything belongs to the metaphor basis of liking, clicking, and sharing photos, music, everything all through the digital media. It may be Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, YouTube, and many more. Oral and folk life no longer belonging to the heritage of the village only. I mean here the context of folklore, the transmission of folklore, and the folk life is expanding its horizon and going beyond its limitation. So here lies the importance of new media and social expansion of folklore studies. So it is about our reception and circulation. Even in COVID-19 situation, as I said, that they have not stopped their performance. So folklore in the digital age shows the transcending boundaries of space, because this space is changing. Space means the physical ground to the space of digital world where it gets connection to the global world. So this online and digital culture, what we see that it has a vivid aspect of globalization, while global multimedia, whether it's audio, video, even earlier when we are thinking of that we have a sadhu sangos where all the baul fakir artists are used to sing in a particular place. But today we see this palagan, especially is not only now they have performed their own studio, they build up their own studio, and they have their own YouTube channel. So maybe they are trying to get more audience where this 1,000 or 2,000 audience is no more their concern. It may be the global, like millions of viewers of their song. So here you could see the importance of their uh, scenario where everything is expanding their space from physical to the global. So this folklore in the digital age, especially in the case of music, because music is my study, so I could say this folklore, especially the folk music in the digital age, provides a deeper understanding and apprehensions of the development of study, and not only in India and also in Bangladesh context, I could say. Because when my postdoctoral level, I tried to study the music, archiving music beyond borders, from especially in West Bengal and Bangladesh, where I have shown how music is changing from one place to another. For example, and there is a similarity, because if you look at the region like Coach Bihar and the other part of Bangladesh, where the Rangpur region, where the Bhavaya is primarily most focused medium of their cultural expression. So that is also a part of my postdoctoral level, where I have shown the uh, the importance of music, how it's going beyond. So this online and digital culture are both driving and following process of globalization. Whether it's today anyone at home, they can have their own smartphone, or maybe they can have their own computer through which they can connect with different part of the world. So this new media used for not only for the entertainment, but they can use their own personal experience and emotions. So this could be the content, like this content is not only they are creating, but this content is expanding its horizon. So in this way, I could say this media, the new world of digital media and social media, changing their aspect of life and their way of life and living. So here is a global turn, where is we can see that there is a global turn from field from folkloristic field to the virtual reality. So this virtual turn, how could you look at this virtual turn in the digital world? And also there is the other part of my presentation where I try to my point is how this medium, this music, or what are the cultural aspect, how could you archive? So when you are presenting or archiving these things, this is also the part of digital, folkloristic. So this presence of information of technology has been persistently enough that even the daily activities can be photographed. They can have their own photograph in this digital age. So the next stage of my presentation is about the folklore and the allied discipline, and how folklore as an object of interdisciplinary study. So this and also how could we see the linkage between folklore with the other discipline? So here I could say that folklorist is not only interested in old relics of the past or decaying tradition. I don't think so that it is decaying, but it is actually evolving and changing its nature, forms, and contents through the ages of time. So, folklore and folk life is actually interdisciplinary in nature. And if you look at the subject, we could see that the dimension of the folklore studies, where we could integrate this discipline with the different discipline like anthropology, like gender studies, like ethnomusicology, linguistics, psychology, performance studies, comparative literature, digital humanities, and many more disciplines, because it has its content where it could be interlinked with different disciplines. Even there are famous work of this linguistic analysis or ethnomusical work, or the gender studies work also can be done through these folklore studies. So we are happy with this, that this discipline could be integrated in any kind of discipline, and it is also the integral part of human being, where this discipline could be spoken, could be anything, could be material culture, or it could be a kind of legends, or it could be a kind of festival, and many more things. Even in the beginning, the keynote speaker also emphasized different festivals and different folk motifs, and also many more things that can be integrated in folklore studies as well. And in my conclusion, I would like to say that the crisis of a discipline in this digital world, or this digital humanities age, the crisis of discipline for this, I could say that why the discipline, why this discipline is not growing so much as a department or as a center or whatever in Indian context. Because if you if you ask somebody how many departments, how many centers are there in folklore studies? You have a very less number for this. Why not so? Because this discipline is talking about our own culture, is talking about our own heritage. But whereas this discipline does not have a particular place in Indian context. So I think this crisis of a discipline in terms of creating centers, in terms of creating more jobs in this perspective, then only I think this discipline can be materialized for our future studies. And uh, out of making archive, out of making this, I think, field work or whatever, we could have given more emphasis on digital ethnography as a tool of folklore studies. And India is a land of multicultural, multicultural communities, multicultural religion, and we have multicultural heritage also. Because the Tamil speaker have their own culture, Bengali have their own culture and heritage. So we have a rich material to sustain ourselves and to express ourselves. So in that perspective, I think today in this digital age, today in this digital age, we can create this multicultural uh, country like us, can give a enlightening path of folk cultural studies. Because our food culture may be different, our dance culture may be different, and our ethnic culture may be different, but we have so many dissimilarities, but still we think we have certain kind of similarity that makes our nation great. Thank you.
Thank you, Intaj, for this enlightening and informative session on digital folklore and interdisciplinarity. I have to inform everybody that we have gone beyond the time limit of 20 minutes. So before I put across the questions for Intaj, I would like to just confirm whether the next two participants of this session are present. And if they are present, kindly raise your hands so we can conduct the next session, the next part of this session accordingly. If the other two participants are not present, we can take up more questions from for Intaj. Okay, I think the other two participants are absent. So, Intaj, there is a question. Actually, there are two parts of this question by Pavitra. The first question is, despite the expansion of folk music to global platform, do you not think that there is disparity that exists between the classical and the folk? How can this disparity be bridged?
Actually, I don't have any idea of the classical music, and for this, I don't think so. I'll be a right person to say on this because I have very less knowledge on classical, so I could not make it a connection with this classical with this folk music.
Okay. The second part of the question by Pavitra is, doesn't the fact that folklore seems to gain appreciation only when performed at a global platform expose the inherent marginalization and internalization of that hegemony?
Yeah, and see, for this hegemony exists in every part of our society, not only this folk or ethnic form. So we only praise which has been seen to us, right? For example, the song that I mentioned, for example, Boroloker Bitilo, this song also sung very long ago, and if it has been also recorded. So people from all over the world, or maybe all over all the part of India, got to know it when it become, you know, a stage or performed in a Bollywood. So this hegemony is everywhere. So जो दिखता है वही बिकता है, जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना. So certain things are always there, I think, for this. I hope this could be my reply to this question.
Thank you for your answer. There is one more question by Ruchi. She says, of course, folklore in its intermingling with digital realm has reached new modes of cultural expression, but at the same time, we still face great digital divide in India and elsewhere, and not all isolated folklore is expressed digitally at this point, but for those which are now rapidly getting reproduced, undergo a dynamic process of alternation to suit the mold of new media. Should we not consider such folk revival and recreation as subcategory within first-hand folklore? Is it not ethically more correct?
Yeah, your point is something I think is accepted to a certain extent, but I could say that there are certain things. For example, we have for COVID-19 situation, people may talk about this digital divide and so many things, but we don't have any alternative. Even those who are in teaching practice, those who are students in university and colleges, they have not faced any physical classes, but for that there are online classes, and a lot of debate also um, happened regarding this digital divide. But what we say for this is a kind of alternative, right? Because we cannot sustain without it. For example, if we say that, could you sustain with digital medium? No, the answer is no. So similarly, there is a movie called Bisar Blues. Bisar Blues is a movie based on Baul Fakir philosophy of Bengal. So before that, maybe Baul and Fakir music has old uh, tradition, but when the movie, certain movies, like there is a lecture we have heard in the first session about folklore movies or something. So there also he talked about this, like when you are talking about these kind of movies, this kind of digital format, then only we get to know such form. But it is also true that all the forms are not digitally presented, right? So it's not possible to present everything, because our internet connection, our digital connection is not equally represented all through the part of all through the part of India. Maybe we have not reached yet our no connection. For example, the current connection also not there. Some of the villages. How can we expect that everything can be stored in digital medium? But there is a possibility or a kind of subcategory through which we can have our own medium of studies, where as a researcher, as a student of folklore, we could adopt this method to making a subcategory. I think this could be my reply to the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Intaj. Um, if there are any more questions, you can please put in the chat box. And meanwhile, I would like to ask again, are the other two participants here? If the other two participants are present, kindly raise your hand in the Zoom options. We can wait for another 1 or 2 minutes in case we have any more questions for Intaj. And since the other two participants seem to be absent, we will end the session after this.
I'll share, if you permit me, I'll share the movie link here in the chat box, and also the archiving link, if you permit me to do so.
Yes, yes, of course. Please, you can share the link in the chat box.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question from Ramesh Malik. They say that we all know the work of Vladimir Prop, who used linguistics as a tool. But what is your idea to link linguistics with folklore?
See, I have not discussed so much on this issue here. Just the beginning, I have given a reference of Vladimir Prof, where in his book Theory and History of Folklore, as I have given a quotation like folklore is an ideological discipline, and its methods and aims are determined by the reflect the outlook of the age. When an outlook disappears, the principle of the scholarship it has created also disappear. So we cannot be guided by scholarly views of romanticism, the enlightenment, or any other trend. We need to create a discipline with the outlook of our own age and country. See, I'm not putting it or mentioning Vladimir Prof in terms of his linguistic affiliation, but I talked about something for his interdisciplinary nature of folklore studies, and how this discipline can disappear and appear again and again. So this is actually my reference of um, uh, Vladimir Prof. So that's why we need to create a discipline with the outlook of our own age and country. That means we can create our own age, we can create our own country, we can create our own methodology and approach of our own by looking at the outlook of the age, the context of the age, and the situation of the age actually. So that is actually my reference. I have not connected with him prop to any linguistic analysis.
Okay, thank you, Intaj. I hope that addresses all the questions that were there in the chat box. Since we have not received any response from the other two speakers, I would like to conclude this session. I would like to thank all the participants who took out their time to participate in this session of our seminar. I would also like to thank both the speakers who came up with very informative presentations and helped us understand folklore better. And I would also finally like to thank all the faculty members, all the research scholars, all the students, and the technical team who has helped us to continue this session smoothly. Thank you, everyone. Now we will end this session, and you can join again for our special lecture at 6 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Sir, shall I close it, sir? Sir, Patnaik, sir. Ankita, sir is there? Patnaik, sir.
I'm checking, sir. I think he has left.
Okay, then we can. So we don't have any other speakers, so then we can close it. No issue.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.